Hi, are you a bully? Would you like to stop bullying? Would you like to just feel all right in your skin so that there's no need to have to bully or exert control of other people? I just did a video, you see, for people who are bullied and how to deal with it. And then I suddenly thought to myself, well, wouldn't it be a better idea to go talk with the bullies so that they no longer need to do what it is that they're doing? So if that appeals, if that makes sense, then watch on. Okay, what I'm going to do, let me explain to start with what on earth is going on. Right now, maybe you already know this, but I don't know what you know and what you don't know. So I'm gonna give you my spiel. I'll try and keep it as quick as possible, but hopefully some of this will resonate, and then you can start to understand that there are better solutions out there for what you're trying to do. So what I explained in my other video for people who are being bullied is that everybody is self-healing. If they permit themselves to heal, they'll heal, right? Our bodies heal. When we have a cut, we form a scab, right? We bleed, the blood forms a membrane, it hardens, we create a scab. Our body heals underneath, the scab falls off, right? It's the same in our brain. That bit might be a little bit harder to swallow, but I promise you it's the case, okay? Now, there are many ways that our brain can heal. The best way is that we... Okay, so we need to heal from a pain, right? We need to heal from a trauma or from a set of fixed beliefs which are dominating our life, which are causing us pain, and we don't know how to change it. Right? That's where the need for healing comes from, or that, at least let's say that's one of the ways that we need to heal. Okay, we find coping mechanisms in order to deal with things that seem impossible for us to fix. The best way mentally to deal with these things is to integrate them. Yeah. But what does that mean, right? Integration is kind of a big word, but what does it mean? Okay. The easiest way, the way that the reason why Freud created talk therapy, the easiest way, or no, not the easiest way, but the most efficient way, is that we talk, we enunciate, we express, ideally to somebody else, in actual fact, who is not a shame-based individual, somebody who you trust, someone who is safe, and they give you their reaction about whatever it is that is causing the pain below. That's the best way, because what happens is when we express, when we're understood, we learn from the experience and we order our memory more like a filing cabinet. It starts to make sense, right? Rather than our memories kind of shooting at us, being in the past, the present, and the future, they start to go where they belong, in the past. And so we can see the use in that. We can, even if things are horrible, there are normally great things to learn from them so that we don't need to experience them again. Then we can put it in the past. Okay, that's what I mean by integrating. The problem is a lot of stuff is not pleasant to integrate. It's not pleasant to think about. It's the last thing we want to do, right? We've become habituated in finding ways to put these bad feelings, bad thoughts in a box, locking the box and throwing it to the bottom of the ocean. Okay, we avoid, right? We avoid through a whole variety of different strategies, right? This is why these things tend to come up in the middle of the night, because there's less opportunity to avoid. So, if the pain becomes habitually avoided, you numb yourself to the point where you're not quite sure anymore of what's going on. Either your body is in hyperdrive at certain moments, it's like, or it's kind of deadened, suffocated in order that you don't feel this, or you find ways to stuff down the feelings, the end result is that the mechanisms, the messenger system inside of your body goes haywire, right? It doesn't work properly. You no longer really understand it, and you no longer really trust it. That's because of repressed feelings, okay? The cause of many, many issues are repressed emotions. But now, by definition, if they're repressed, that means you can't bring them back up to conscious thought. You can't express them to someone else, and you can't integrate them. So what happens then, right? And believe me, this is a self-healing mechanism. So if consciously you can't find ways to express these issues which need addressing, these pains that need fixing, your mind-body experience will find ways of acting out so that you repeat the experiences in such a way that you can learn from it, understand it. Your conscious mind might eventually kind of just by accident go, that's a bit like, and you learn from it, and then you bring it back up to consciousness, you understand it, you process it, you put it where it belongs in the past, then you no longer need to feel those feelings because you've got it, all right? So the messenger no longer needs to bang at the door anymore. So you're going to constantly find that your I'm not sure if you want to call it your mind or your body or your mind-body experience, it's all of you as an organism, is going to create opportunities to act out the things that are hurting, right? Even if they're hurting at the back of your mind or in your gut or your heartache or whatever it may be. That's where bullying comes from, okay? So ordinarily, bullying is the result of shame-based experiences that we just found ourselves attacked by, I guess is the best way to describe it, right? Things happen to us from other people who themselves are shame-based, who themselves are trying to absolve themselves of their shame. We become the unwitting victim of their bullying, of their lack of control, of their need to feel superior. We internalize an experience and learn about the things that we can do that must have been our fault, right? So what happens is something happens, we think it's our fault, we discover ways either inadvertently or deliberately that seem to help, and we learn our shame, okay? We learn the parts of ourselves that are unforgivable, that are taboo, that are dangerous, okay? That we need to lock in that box and throw it to the bottom of the ocean. So by definition, they are outside of conscious control, right? We've put them as far away from our conscious mind as we possibly can. But we hurt from those experiences in the past. We habituate a way of numbing ourselves or of distracting ourselves or of doing this kind of emotional yo-yo in order to cope with something that we dare not speak its name. So to go back to the acting out explanation, there is an argument to say the reason you are bullying somebody else is because you daren't face the fear or the shame head on. The rest of you is finding opportunities to act out so that you can work out the pains inside of yourself. And the way that you do that, temporarily becoming the perpetrator, okay? Very briefly stopping to feel shameful yourself and starting to understand what was going on in the mind of whoever was doing whatever was occurring that caused you to learn your shame, right? So there's lots of important information in there. First of all, that shame was learned, that it wasn't something you chose, it wasn't something that you did that suddenly became awful. It was something you understood, something that you perceived and found ways to cope with because you were in a state of massive pain or danger. The fight, flight, freeze triggered responses inside of you which demanded an immediate solution. Okay, so you learned ways that have got sent to the bottom of your subconscious mind, which are now running on autopilot, but that need healing. And so you find that if you go and bully somebody else, it makes you feel a little bit better. It makes you forget that you're a shameful individual. It gives you a momentary, brief sense of control. So you're not out of control. It's like, haha, I am the one in power. And you kind of feel normal just for a brief second. So it's like a brilliant addiction. The problem with an addiction, the problem with bullying, is that you cannot ever get enough of something that only partially works. Okay, so bullying is never going to be a solution, but it can be a very, very short-term solution, just like getting drunk. It's like all of the addictions and avoidances, they work a little bit. And so if the alternative, learning from yourself and diving into the fears, is so painful, well then, hey, you're going to do that avoidance instead. Okay. Now, maybe just having explained that to you is already halfway there. Okay. If you can understand why it is that you're bullying, understand that you can never get enough of something that only half works, eventually you're going to have to come to the conclusion that there has to be a better way, right? Because that way is never going to fix it. It's going to just continue. It's just going to continue forever. Worse than that, of course, and I'm sure you already know this, when you bully somebody else, you are doing so in order to watch their experience of how you coped with your bullying, of your shame-based experience. So you're understanding the perpetrator's perspective, you're understanding how the victim reacts, and therefore finding ways to digest that and put it in the past. But in order to do so, this poor person who is the victim, of which there may be many, you're then creating a shame-based story inside of them, which is then taboo for them to discuss and express, and so they are then going to go and act out on other individuals. And so you're creating a chain of pain, yeah, because of your hurt, which you may or may not be consciously aware of. So here's the good news. Heal yourself, and you can heal all those future pains of all the victims and the victims of the victims and the victims of the victims of the victims, and so on ad infinitum. Change yourself and the system benefits. Everybody, potentially for generations, no longer needs to suffer. Okay. Now, if your pain is so great that you need to find ways out of it, then maybe making other people suffer, maybe watching other people suffer is a solution, okay? I still maintain that that is a self-healing mechanism, that you're trying to find a way to feel normal briefly. The solution that you're finding doesn't work. In fact, worse than that, it compounds the shame that you feel. Yeah? You kind of reject yourself even stronger. So it may not be sufficient to simply acknowledge that by doing it, it's bad. Okay? Because maybe if you knew it was bad and that was going to work, you would have already stopped. So, in addition, try this. You have learned how to cope with a situation that was outside of your control, that was so painful, you had to push it away. We call that, we label that shame, okay? And that's a bit of a pitiful label because it doesn't express any iota of the massive, massive variety of potential pain that can be encapsulated within that. But let's just call it, okay? We learn somehow or other that these things are our fault, and that if we do certain things, we'll find ways to mitigate the risk. Shame isn't all bad, okay? There are, I promise you, if you look inside of yourself, ways, no matter how bad that experience may have been, even if you've forgotten it completely, or you think you've forgotten it completely and it's embodied, there are ways to turn that into positive experiences, right? Even if it's just, I will learn never to experience that again, okay? Or I will never allow somebody else to be placed in the experience that I was, you know? There are always opportunities for learning from the shame. It can be, well, I'm not as powerful as I thought I was, right? So it might teach you your own limitations. It might be, I'm not as sure about myself as I thought I was. It turns out that what I thought I am came from a learning experience provoked by another bully that I had no choice over and that I somehow had to cope with at a time in my life when, frankly, I was powerless, right? It might be the ultimate opportunity to forgive yourself because you understand that what you thought was really, really bad about you, that was causing the pain, that was causing ways to act out, to understand what was going on, actually is all a nonsense, that it was not your fault. It may be that it was your fault, that you really, really did do things that were horrific. But acting them out again and again is never going to fix it. The way to fix it is by acknowledging, understanding, and deciding, choosing to never do that again, you know, and therefore become your best friend. There are 1,000 different ways that you can look at. It's a choice, right? But there is a choice to be made to see the good in the problem, to give yourself some aspect of leverage, learn from that, and get back on your own side. Yeah? So you can choose whichever of those might work or one of your own. But the point is to lean into your bodily experience. Okay? Your mind has kind of checked out, right? Your mind is trying to self-soothe somehow or other, but because this issue is so deeply embedded or so taboo or so frightful, it doesn't come, right? You can't rationalize this problem away. It's like an unsolvable problem. But if you lean into the feelings, which is why people promote mindfulness and hypnosis and so on, if you lean into the feeling with a sense of open-minded caring rather than a sense of judgment, just to learn what occurs, to understand your feelings, to start questioning the perceptions that come from those feelings and question, are they correct? Are they mine? Where did I learn those from? So what? You know, what is the catastrophe? And so what, and so what, and so what? When you understand yourself, when you understand what's going on, when you can take a step back from the feeling and accept that maybe the feeling is an aspect of you, but it's not all of you. Then you can kind of identify you behind the feeling, and you can start to question the need to act out, the causes of the need to act out, the solution that you're looking for when acting out. And suddenly there's no need to do so anymore. Now, that's not to say that suddenly you become consciously aware and able to fix everything which is subconscious, every repressed emotion. I'm not saying that at all. But by becoming your own analyst, effectively, by considering your body, rather than intellectualizing everything, starting to accept that you are what you are, rather than needing a fix. You know, in order to get somewhere, you need to know where you're starting from. It's a process of forgiving yourself. So you no longer need to self-soothe by bullying somebody else. Yeah? All of those things can work. Or maybe the leverage is, I'm making the world a better place, you know, because if I stop hurting someone, then they're going to stop hurting someone, and they're going to stop hurting someone, and so on and so forth. There's lots and lots and lots and lots of ways to do this. Ultimately, the story is, it's a choice, right? Everything is a choice. And you're going to continue running on your rails until you choose to do something different. Like everything. If any of that resonates, go have a look at all my videos, because they're all basically on a similar vein of you're running on stories, rules, policies, and procedures that you never really chose, that came from experiences in your life that led you to conclusions about who you are and what you're capable of, and how you make your needs met, what your values are, what your core integrity is. And those stories cause you to live the life that you live. And it's all a choice. It's all far more fluid than you think it is. And the opportunities are endless because everything is changing. But it takes a step. Yeah, it takes a choice. Everything takes a choice. If you make a positive step and you express that to other people, they receive a positive step, they express that to other people, the whole world becomes a nicer place. Yeah, we can't be responsible for experiences that were just part of our history, but we can process them, we can learn from them, we can move on from them, and we can make the world a nicer place so that nobody else has to suffer from them. And granted, the world's a complicated place, and there's a lot going on that is way outside of our control, and there's a lot of people that use power as a way to get their needs met. But it's not the only way, and it's by no means the most efficient way. So yeah, I hope that all helps. Get in touch. Let's make the world a better place rather than a worse place. I guess you wouldn't even be watching this video unless you wanted to make the world a better place somehow or other, and to fix yourself in the meantime, right? As part of it, it's like a fringe benefit. You fix yourself, you fix the world. I hope that's helpful. Take care, and yeah, write some comments down below. Tell me what's going on, and if you want, contact me directly, and I don't know, we can find a way. Yeah. All right. Thanks for watching. It's quite a long one, but that's because it's important. Take care. Bye.